Good morning and welcome to Daybreak News. This morning I'll be having an interview with the Minister of Home Affairs, Mr. Robeson Benn, and it is in direct relation to a no confidence motion that has been brought against the Minister by an opposition who was brought down by a no confidence motion when they were in government. My major concern is how will the minister address this motion since it has to be debated in Parliament. Is he confident that what he has done for the past year has added up to enough to represent himself against this no confidence motion? And also, my need to understand if the opposition is now the new experts on no confidence motions since they have experienced the harsh realities of a no confidence motion. Minister Benn, thank you for this interview. And let me first start off by saying I have been very critical of some of the methods that you use in carrying out your job as a minister. Specifically, my opinion that there's a need for better communication between yourself and media. Now, that being said, the reason I requested this interview specifically is because if there's anybody else can or should be fair about what is happening right now, it should be me. In light of the fact, I have also experienced the previous administration 5 years. And I can say, as much as I have been critical of you, I do not find what you have done so far has added up to or could add up to the incompetence of your predecessor. So just to get that clear, right?
Well, thank you, critic, if I may use the term. I am not averse to criticism. In fact, I welcome it. It gives me the opportunity to review my actions, the actions of undertaken by the ministry, its policies, and even down to the individual indiscretions, misdemeanors, and sometimes very bad things which happen in relation to some units of the services which fall under the ministry. So I have no difficulty in being criticized in respect of the issue of being more communicative, I guess, on the ministerial level. I take the view so far that more work at the interpersonal level with the units, with the stations, with the prison people is important now, and also not to be brought into a position where there's a continuing skirmish, continuing dissension, argument, irrational debate over what is being undertaken. Because there are people out there who move off of every nuance, every word that you say, and to spin it in ways which are negative and not helpful in terms of what we're supposed to do in the security sector. So I would admit that I've been fairly averse to coming out and saying things which will invoke irrational responses. I think even now, the fact that we are talking perhaps relates to a recent statement I made in respect of things Mr. Harmon himself said. I issued a statement in response, and I saw the Starbuck News said that there was a volatile or something disagreement going on between ourselves. But this is not a personal thing. This is something about being able to lead in difficult circumstances, in circumstances where there's malicious and racial intent out there, negative. And we have to bring the organizations and with that our country to a safe position in terms of safety and security. And that's what we're working on. We're working on it every day.
Okay, Minister. To get at the real issue, a no confidence motion has been brought against you. And the reason I have sought to have your input and Dr. Frank Anthony, the Minister of Health's input, because when a no confidence motion was brought against the opposition when in government, they were all confident that they would have overcome that, and then they were charandased.
Okay, yeah.
What say you as to your position in overcoming this no confidence motion? What evidence do you have? What have you done so far to show that this is basically just a deliberate attempt to create unrest and confusion in this country?
Yes, well, first off, this no confidence motion against Frank and myself, it's a stunt. I see it as a stunt. It is intended to deflect, to make oblique attacks, to not have persons, the public, pay attention to the security issues in our case, which we've been taking condign action on. I think there were questions relating to recent arrests, questions relating, of course, in relation to the West Coast with these murders, and also with attempts to pervert the course of justice in that regard. So, in the first instance, it's a stunt to deflect, and also to create conditions for upsets, for misbehavior, for rioting perhaps, that we experienced last year on the West Coast of Portuguese. I would say that in terms of our record, and I know that the opposition, led by Mr. Harmon himself, have a problem with numbers. In the first instance, they have to look at the lineup in the parliament with respect to numbers. Do they have the numbers for no confidence motion? Is there a possibility that there is a charadas supposedly on our side? Is there a possibility that someone of us will not vote on the issue, will abstain? I don't think those conditions exist. So in respect of the parliament itself, I think it's a no-go. Secondly, in terms of our record here in the ministry, we have repeatedly said, if anyone would listen and would be rational about what we've said, is that serious crime in Guyana has gone down by 22%. That's a fact. It's a fact which cannot be set aside. Road deaths have gone down by 30%. All of those numbers are year-to-date versus 2020. Most of the other statistics which we speak of have shown reduction. Yes, there are still challenges. Perhaps we have not paid attention to the question of crime as much as we are doing now because we were all distracted by the recount and the machinations in respect of stealing our country, stealing and avoiding our democracy. So perhaps we didn't pay enough attention to what was going on last year and the previous year in terms of crime. But now, and rightfully so, we can focus on the real and proper issues which affect the daily lives of our Guyans. Issues of crime, insecurity, upsets in the community, even misdemeanors, traffic safety. We can focus on these things now. And I'm glad otherwise that we're going to have this debate because it brings us properly into focus on what we should have been doing all the time. Not attempting to steal elections in the case of the opposition for last year and to steal the country itself. So I think that we are having success. We know where we have serious gaps and deficiencies. We know what we have in respect of our forces, both at the level of the police force particularly, the deficiencies there, the lack of mobility, the lack of integrity, the questions of corruption. We know what we are dealing with there, and we're working at those issues. We know in the case of the prison service, the fact that the entire system was practically destroyed as a result of upsets and fires, and prisoners being killed in the prison as a result of fires, as a result of inattention. We are aware of those things. We had the Camp Speed fire where 17 men died. Interventions to make improvements, but it was much delayed, and I believe it is rife with corruption because units were bought from the United States of America and were left on the ground for over a year, and nothing was being done to move the project ahead. The COVID pandemic granted. We are looking at building a completely new prison at Lusignan, which will hold most of the prison population. In the case of the fire service, we are aware of deficiencies in training, in engagement, in their posture, in terms of leadership, and this could be said across the board for all of the services. But we know that we have to, after the malaise of the last 5 or so years, during the APNU's time, we know that we have to work with the services, with the leadership in the services to bring them to a point of professionalism, better diversity in terms of their people who are working there, so that we can make a significant leap forward in respect of the services they're supposed to provide. I am very confident both in terms of the people we have at the ministry, their willingness to work. I'm confident in respect of most of the membership of the judges, of the services under the ministry, the police, the fire, and the prison, that we could bring ourselves to a point where we will have significant improvement. But with the challenges, there'll be bumps along the road. We have certainly some issues which we have to confront with seriously. You know, the current noises with respect of police promotions and the defunct, as it is, Police Service Commission. We are aware, as I said before, of corruption in the forces, police force, fire service, prison service, and the fact that there are malcontents, some political malcontents there. But we want to work to bridge our gaps, to show better empathy to the people we have to work with, to have a more non-contentious engagement between, say, the police and the public. We said that we want the citizens to take videos of every engagement between the police and themselves and others. We said that we want to put, and we will put, video cameras in each police station where the police and the public engage. We have taken action in relation to indiscretions and serious crime, as it was, allegations in respect of police misbehavior. There are a number of those out there which are being investigated, including the Peter Headley issue, his death, and there are a few others. There are a few policemen who are imprisoned in relation to issues or under close arrest. So, in a large organization, fairly diverse in terms of personalities, there's always a situation where you would have breakdown, lapses of judgment, inattention, and particularly in the case of our the makeup of the police, the prison and fire service, disdainful behavior in respect of the public, lack of empathy in the prison service. I talked about no person should be beaten, persons should only be restrained as necessary to the level of the force required, and that we should not be in a position where we're not empathetic and that we're not rehabilitating persons and leading to recidivism. Fire service, there's a lot of work to be done there. We spend most of money in unit assets, in units for the fire service. $60 or $90 million on new fire truck. Issues of engagement, of utilizing the training that they have been given, are issues which we're working with. And there are also some misconceptions in the public where there's regular talk, like at the fire at Mandela the other day, the North Rhinebeck Multilateral School, where they say the fire trucks arrive without water and things like that, without knowing what the true situation is. But there are deficiencies, there's a destroying of assets in the way they do maintenance of equipment, and those are issues we're working hard at.
Minister Benn, you have covered a lot there, and consecutive administrations would have been addressing different issues at different times. You are the Home Affairs Minister of an administration that has its second go at running Guyana. Under the previous administration, 23 years rule, there was quite a bit of mischief created where politicians, specifically from the PNC, were played an orchestrating role in unrest in Guyana. Today, we see that play out again, where the brutal murder of the Henry boys was turned into a political and racial issue that caused widespread hurt to Guyanese. Now, the Ministry of Home Affairs and consecutive governments have been dealing with people for marijuana, petty crimes, people go to jail for different crimes. Would it be unconstitutional, or is it in any form of consideration that there needs to be a criminal unit that looks at the PNCR and their actions, since most of the unrest that caused mass injury and harm to property and persons in Guyana in recent years has been directly related to the now opposition?
Yes, well, what I would say is that the PNC has to avoid being classified as a criminal organization. There's a perception out there that it is indeed a criminal organization, or with many elements who undertake criminal activities. We had, of course, and you did refer to it, the issue of the fine man and the Rollins
who were considered freedom fighters.
Yes.
Openly by
Boston
politicians.
Episode, we had the Lusignan killings, we had the Bartica killings, and there was complete disorder. We do not want to return to that situation, and we don't even want to return to the situation where we had in the West Coast with these after the nefarious killings of the Henry boys. We do not want to return to that situation. We have said we're prepared to have open dialogue and discussion in respect of the local issues and the national issues which are of concern to them. But even from the place of the parliament, it is evident that there is not a sincere interest in engaging. There's an interest in creating disturbance, upset, deflections, and diversions to engender violence and racial unrest in the country. It comes out in their statements, it comes out in their behavior in the parliament, it comes out in statements they make in the parliament about other persons of other races. And it's highly unfortunate, but I'd say the APNUAFC, the PNC itself, and the leadership are like every other Guyanese, subject to the laws of Guyana, subject to the Constitution and its laws. And if they are found wanting in those regards, they will be dealt with by what exists under the laws. And they'll be dealt with by the very institutions which are set up to deal with those issues.
Minister Benn, I see you have a book here, Police Administration. Is there something new going on with the police? How do we deal with training? How do we deal with the new outlook and fostering good relation between the police and the citizens? Can you tell me a bit about what's going on there?
It was just that I received just now 6 books on police administration. It's a donation from some friends. And I wanted to get these books to be able to give them the police divisions and to have it available for them when they're doing their courses and so on. This is a very important book in terms of the subject. I think there was only one copy somewhere in the police library. I don't think anybody ever used it properly or used it. Not that individual policemen may not have their texts on there. But we are trying to develop a new spirit. We've spoken to them about integrity. We've spoken about professionalism. We've spoken to them to rise up to the true meaning of their training and to the service and protection they're required to give to the Guyanese people. As I've said, this is obviously not an easy task and it will take some time. We have to look at how persons are taken into the police force. We are looking at how the training is done. And I would say that there's a lot of training that they undergo. But the question of engaging on the training in a proper way, assessing failures in engagement with the public, properly taking care of their assets. The police force has a deficit of over 50 vehicles. We're bringing in 50 new vehicles by the end of this month. Somewhat delayed, but they're coming in. And the way how they speak and deal with people. There is also a requirement of the citizens to behave properly with the police and not try to think that in any case we could give a 5,000 and get off with it for whatever misdemeanor and discretion that there is. So this is a significant work in progress to have new police, a new police culture, and also to increase the peace in Guyana. I think there's too often a situation where police and others may go into certain communities, like I've seen in indigenous communities in the country, in the interior, where they behave with a sense of entitlement, where they behave with a sense of demanding and taking, where they are not in tune with the cultural mores and behaviors and aspirations of the people, and are sometimes viewed almost as an occupying force in the communities, and that even occurs on the coast. So bringing in greater diversity, greater multiculturalism, moving away from what remains of our legacy in terms of colonialism, of having a British-style police force with certain religious and other trappings, they use perhaps a bad term, still remaining, but we have to have an integrated forces, services. That's the only way we'll be able to work and improve things together. So if you and I join the police force tomorrow, we'll come out as squaddies. We look out for each other and we want to support and develop and work with each other in the service that we are to give. And that we shouldn't see you and I, as we look here now, as being adversarial, or that your very presence means that you're taking away something from me. And in the way we speak and relate to each other has to be more empathetic and supportive. So that's what we want, that's what we're working at.
Minister Benn, it is clear the no confidence motion that has been brought against yourself and Dr. Frank Anthony has not been well thought through, like many things that the opposition do. In light of the fact you suggested the numbers will not stand up, obviously arguments, because of the fact that you are arguing against an administration or an opposition that was in power for 5 years, failed miserably, and you are now only 1 year in and is boasting a decrease in crime and road accidents. Do you see there being a likelihood that a no confidence motion being brought against the opposition leader in light of the fact that there's so much that could bring a successful motion against him? Do you see the likelihood of that?
In the totality of the parliament, the numbers are against him if a no confidence motion is brought. The numbers are against him, and there may be a charandas amongst them on his side.
Do you see that being likely?
I don't know what is likely. We want to, if I might speak for the European PDP Civic, we really would like to see that we come to positions of rationality, that we could have reason and civil debates, that we could bring our country to a state where we could navigate to a rapprochement in terms of how we have to develop the country. Because as I've said, if we don't have peace in the parliament, we wouldn't have peace in Guyana. If we don't have sustainable, rational, reasonable debate and behavior in the parliament, we give the worst examples to the rest of the country. And there's no reason for the rest of the country to be better than we are. So we ourselves have to be better in the parliament, that's in totality, and I think a lot of the effort has to be made on the other side. I think they have to get over the PTSD, the post-traumatic stress syndromes of losing the elections and of losing in their attempts to steal the country and the elections. And even if they don't want to admit to their wrongdoing, to turn a new page and to let's move forward, let the country move forward. But clearly now, given this current episode, there doesn't seem to be a reason for, they don't want to do so. This is just another episode, and I would point out, and perhaps Frank did point out, that the leader of the opposition took the COVID vaccines. He had 2 jabs of the COVID vaccines very early on, but he is going about the place and telling people that they need more information before they take the vaccine. And perhaps unremarkably, Region 10, amongst 1 or 2 other regions, are the ones which are way behind in terms of vaccine uptake. Can you imagine the malevolence and the maliciousness in that type of behavior, both in terms of rejecting the vaccine and having people reject the vaccine, probably a PPP vaccine, I don't know, and in terms of being uncaring and irresponsible to people who they claim are their supporters and who I think are trapped by them. So I think they have to do serious introspection and retrospection and to change their behavior. I know it's going to be difficult. They've got to do quite a bit of cold turkey to get out of it. But I think the worst thing in the parliament in itself is the fact that the younger parliamentarians who have come in are being made to follow blindly along the same path that Harmon and others like himself set in terms of misbehavior, malicious talk and presentations and so on, and vitriolic representation. So I think that's pretty bad. I think it's a disservice to the young parliamentarians and to young Guyanese people who would want to take part in political life in a progressive way, and that it doesn't help in developing our political and democratic culture.
Minister Benn, I get the sense in your tone, after 5 months experience with the now opposition, after the Henry Boys experience, in light of your experience in the past PPP administration with the PNC, you have chosen the high road and is still extending an olive branch.
We have to extend the olive branch. The question is whether it will be taken. We ought to extend the olive branch. The persons who are our adversaries in many at the political level are Guyanese too, and in many cases we share parallel lives and roles in the streets. We have perhaps sat in the same school benches and went to the same schools all around. Somehow we know each other. We may not want to express that we like each other and perhaps not even love each other, but if we in the PPPC do not extend the olive branch, and we've been doing so all the time, we're open to talk, we're open to discussion, we're open to tete-a-tetes. It would be irresponsible on our part to not be open to discussion, to be open to extending the olive branch, as it were, because that is our responsibility as a government, as a political unit grouping in the parliament. But we have to make sure that each and every one accords to the laws and to the rules and the regulations of the country so that we're all safe.
Minister Benn, on that note, I know you're busy and you have a number of things relating to the people's work to do. I want to thank you for this interview. I want to thank you for the transparency and going in depth and explaining a number of different issues that affect Guyanese and would have obviously brought some bit of clarity.
Yeah, just in closing on my part, I'd like to note and see the unfortunate passing of the president of Haiti, Jovenel Moïse, who apparently was assassinated this morning, and his wife injured. Haiti has very historic and ennobling history, but has had unfortunate experiences along the way. So I just wanted to say that we note the passing and we're saddened by the events.
Thanks again, Minister. And thank you, the viewers, for tuning in to this exclusive interview on Daybreak News.